the classic men's suit. In the mid-20th century, a man's suit wasn't just clothing, it was a statement of discipline, respectability, and confidence. Tailoring was sharp, and fabrics were heavy wool or tweed, designed to last for decades rather than seasons. The 1950s brought boxier cuts, while the 1960s slimmed everything down with narrower lapels and tighter fits, inspired by London's mod movement. Men took pride in matching their pocket squares to their ties and polishing every button before heading out. Three-piece suits, complete with a vest, were common in formal circles and business offices alike. Double-breasted designs signified authority and class, especially among executives and entertainers. Even the way a man stood or crossed his legs in a suit was part of a learned etiquette from an era that valued presentation above all. Hairstyles of the 60s and 70s. Men's hair went through a cultural revolution during these decades, reflecting social changes more than almost any other part of style. In the early 1960s, clean, short cuts ruled, neatly parted, slicked with Brel cream and carefully combed into place. Then came the Beatles, and suddenly longer, looser, and more natural hair became not just acceptable, but fashionable. By the 1970s, sideburns had grown thick, mustaches made a comeback, and the shag haircut symbolized youthful freedom. Barbershops that once specialized in military-style trims now had to adapt to a generation that preferred flow and movement. Footwear, from polished leather to platform soles. In the post-war years, men's shoes were a mark of refinement. Leather Oxfords, polished loafers, and wingtip brogues dominated closets. Every pair was kept spotless, and a man might spend Sunday evening shining them while watching television. By the late 1960s, the rise of counterculture relaxed footwear norms, and boots, especially Chelsea and Cuban-heeled styles, took center stage. The 1970s introduced bold experimentation. Platform shoes, square toes, and bright colors that broke away from decades of black and brown. Men started matching their shoes to their shirts or even their cars, reflecting a growing sense of personal flair. Hats, the crowning touch. Through the 1940s and 50s, no man left home without a hat. It was as essential as his wallet or watch. Fedoras, trilbies, and Homburgs topped heads in business districts across America, signaling maturity and respectability. But by the 1960s, as youth culture and new hairstyles took hold, hats began to vanish from daily wear. John F. Kennedy famously appeared hatless at his inauguration, symbolizing a generational shift. Still, older gentlemen kept their felt hats brushed and shaped perfectly, often wearing them as a quiet link to a more formal past. In the 1970s, the wide-brimmed pimp hat and cowboy hats saw revivals through pop culture and film. Watches, timepieces as status symbols. A man's wristwatch once said as much about him as his car or career. Mechanical watches were treasured possessions, often gifted for graduations, retirements, or milestones. Brands like Rolex, Omega, and Bulova represented precision, craftsmanship, and quiet success. In the 1960s, slim gold watches dominated the office scene, while the 1970s ushered in chunkier, sportier styles. The rise of quartz technology later changed everything, but during this golden age, winding your watch each morning felt like a small ritual of control and discipline. Leather straps, metal bands, and even digital experiments began blending technology with personal identity. Ties and accessories. Neckwear was once the ultimate detail that separated a man who dressed well from one who didn't. In the 1950s and early 1960s, ties were narrow and understated, often solid or striped. By the 1970s, they exploded into bold prints, paisleys, and wide kipper ties that practically shouted for attention. Tie bars, cufflinks, and pocket squares added an element of polish and individuality, especially in corporate America. Some men coordinated their ties with their cars' interiors or their wives' dresses for special occasions. Silk was considered the finest material, and learning the perfect Windsor knot was a rite of passage. In an era before casual Fridays, your tie was your personality on display. Outerwear and coats. A man's outerwear in the mid-century years spoke volumes about his environment and status. Trench coats and long wool overcoats dominated the cityscape, while leather jackets and bomber styles symbolized rebellion and adventure. The 1960s introduced lightweight raincoats and mod-inspired pea coats that paired well with slimmer suits. By the 1970s, fashion dared to experiment with color camel, tan, and even bright plaid patterns entered the mainstream. Suede jackets, shearling collars, and belted waists brought a rugged sophistication that blended city life with a touch of the frontier. Casual wear emerges. Before the 1960s, casual wear meant maybe removing your tie or loosening your collar at home. But the youth movements of the 1960s and 70s redefined leisure fashion entirely. Denim jeans became acceptable beyond work sites, symbolizing rebellion and comfort at once. Polo shirts, turtlenecks, and patterned button-downs began replacing stiff dress shirts on weekends. The idea of dressing down was revolutionary comfort, was suddenly cool. Men started to mix casual pieces with formal ones, like a blazer over jeans, setting the stage for modern smart casual trends. It was a cultural leveling of the playing field, where style was no longer dictated by strict rules, but by self-expression. Grooming and fragrance. Men's grooming habits changed dramatically during this time, influenced by film, advertising, and evolving gender roles. In the 1950s, aftershave was brisk and simple. Think Old Spice or Aqua Velva, a clean scent of discipline and routine. By the 1970s, bolder fragrances like Brut, Aramis, and Musk hit the shelves, reflecting sensuality and self-confidence. Barbershops gave way to unisex salons, where men began paying attention to conditioning, styling products, and even skin care. Facial hair became an art form from clean-shaven executives to full-bearded bohemians. Jewelry and small details. Men's jewelry quietly evolved from functional to expressive over the mid-century years. Cufflinks, tie pins, and class rings were once the peak of masculine adornment. By the late 1960s, gold chains, signet rings, and even bracelets became common, inspired by rock stars and Hollywood icons. The 1970s disco era pushed this further, introducing bold accessories that reflected the era's flamboyant energy. Watches grew flashier, and some men even sported earrings as a sign of rebellion or artistic flair. Silver and gold mixed freely, breaking old-style taboos. Each small detail, from a pinky ring to a belt buckle, told a story about where a man stood between tradition and modernity.